Okay, welcome to Miss Maribak's speed version of world history. We have to get through this super fast. It's meant to be a review for you from last year to sort of help us put American settlement, or the settlement of the Americas, the three Americas that we talked about, by European settlers. But before we get to that point, we have to sort of have an idea about how that fits into events that happened all around the world. So let's start with 23,000 years ago. And we're going to talk quickly about Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we are. They developed around 23,000 years ago, spreading from southern Africa all over the world. We talked about this ice age, going over land bridges that now don't exist because the ice age is no longer with us. So this whole period of time, Homo sapiens sapiens, were traveling around the world in bands of about 30 to 60, and they are carrying everything that they own with them. Everything they have has to be able to be carried. This nomadic lifestyle, they're traveling around looking for fruits, roots, nuts, and berries, small game. Nomadic life was short, but it also required people, by definition, to move a lot. This is how Homo sapiens sapiens lived for thousands of years on the planet. It's how the original inhabitants of North, Central, and South America, the Native Americans, got here in the first place. This all changes with the discovery of farming. We call that the Neolithic Revolution, or the first agricultural revolution. Why the first? Because there's another agricultural revolution way ahead. So right now we're going to call it the Neolithic Revolution. It's the discovery of farming. How this happened is still a mystery. We don't know for sure how it happened. What we do know is that it happened around the same time in 4 different places, all along the same latitudinal plane or similar latitudinal plane in terms of relationship to the equator. The Indus Valley, Mesopotamia, the Nile River, and Huang. These are all river valley civilizations. Do you remember we looked at the map, we looked at the fact that they were aligned with each other on the same latitudinal line, and we talked about why. The reason is because of climate, reliability of sun. It's a perfect place for farming to start. But why it happened, we still don't know. Archaeologists, anthropologists still haven't pieced that together. We just know that this is where civilization began. Meaning nomadic life, people stopped traveling from place to place looking for fruits, roots, nuts, berries, small game, and started to be able to manipulate nature to their benefit. They now had a reliable food source. With this reliable food source, they are now able to stay in one place. When they stayed in one place, they started to develop permanent dwellings for the first time, meaning they don't have to carry their shelter on their back or be looking for caves or natural shelter. They can now create their own shelters, permanent homes, permanent structures. We also talked about the fact that this is where we see the invention of writing, right? Cuneiform, which you should have learned last year. I don't know if you did. I'm hoping that you did. We didn't talk about it today, but first form of writing, symbols, essentially, shapes, symbols. Before writing, this is called the prehistoric era because history is written, right? So prehistory then is before writing. Okay. 4 river valley civilizations emerge around the same time. About 5,000–6,000 years ago, you move forward, we start to see the development of the major world religions. We talked about why the first religions would have developed, and when we say religions, we don't mean spiritual beliefs, because certainly, possibly, these people had spiritual beliefs, but organized religious practices and rituals develop here with the first civilizations, with people staying in one place. We talked about why. Why would the first religions have developed? People are reliant now on weather in a way that they weren't before. When nomadic tribes exhausted the resources of one place, what did they do? They packed up and they went someplace else. When nomadic tribes experienced cold, what did they do? They traveled to where it was warm. They followed small game. They followed animals around. They weren't reliant on sun, rain, climate, the way they were when they started to rely on agriculture to live. Once they start to rely on agriculture to live, we talked about in class the fact that, okay, where do all religions, I mean this is across the board, if you're talking certainly about the major world religions, if someone's praying, where are they looking? They're looking up. All of the gods and goddesses of the pagan religions that came before the first monotheistic religion, all of these pagan gods and goddesses were in the sky. They were up, right? Why is that? The sun is in the sky. The rain is in the sky. These are things, lightning is in the sky. All the ways in which the first inhabitants of the first civilizations did not understand forces of nature. They created stories to better explain to themselves, to their children, the forces of nature. And they also believed in these very strongly, so much so that they would sacrifice people, believing that that would make the sun shine more, or the rivers stop flooding, or bring rain when it was needed, all of these things. So this is the beginning of what we think of as organized religious beliefs and rituals. So we see the development of Hinduism in India, Judaism, the first monotheistic religion in Israel, Buddhism again in India, which then spreads east to the Far East into China. And here's where we talked a little bit about this today in class, about this is sort of the period of Greek development. The Greeks had their own gods and goddesses, which then the Romans adopted and gave Latin names instead of Greek names. But all religious thought here, all religious belief here, centered around nature, gods and goddesses. Okay, we got to the point where we reviewed a little bit the rise of the Roman Empire and then the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 AD, when Rome was sacked by the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, and the Huns. And the Roman Empire falls officially in 476. It had been crumbling prior to that, but it falls officially in 476. Within this period of time of the rise of Greece, and then the fall of Greece, and the rise of Rome, and then the fall of Rome, we have something really important happen. We have the birth of this man named Jesus. And we know how much that changed the world forever. So, we talked about the fact that the Catholic Church was the first and only church to exist for people that were Christian. And by definition, to be Christian means that you are a follower of Christ. You believe Christ was the Son of God. So the first church developed in the about 200s AD, or 200 CE, after Jesus is born and crucified. So we now have Christianity. We have Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and about 600 years later, we see Islam emerge in Saudi Arabia. About 400 years after that, we see Christians and Muslims duking it out during the Crusades, and then we see sort of the split of the East and West in terms of religion. Okay, that's as far as we got. That should be a good review. I think that was, yeah, we did not make it past the 1300s. Okay, and one more thing. Everything we know about this period of time, because we don't have writing yet, comes to us from archaeologists and anthropologists. So it's piecing together the puzzle pieces of history, of human history, using artifacts and bones. And so that's what we know about this period of time prior to writing. Okay? Hopefully that helps. That's it.